Hello and welcome to the Hummingbird series. I'm Sarah Seidelman and this is my guest, Sunny McMillan.
Hello.
And Sunny is a lawyer turned life coach, and she is phenomenal. And I just met her through a tribe of coaches, got to know her, and she has an amazing story. And that's why I invited her to come and talk here to share some tips for those of you who may be having a similar struggle or challenge. And you can see in her background, she's written a new book called Unhitched, which is all about sort of moving. Well, maybe you can tell me what. I mean, I've read the book and it's marvelous. And Sunny was living a pretty amazing and intense, high-paced sort of Hollywood life. And it came to a point where she started to feel really inauthentic in it. But maybe you can talk about that, Sunny, and she's going to share some tips about maybe if you're feeling caught up in that kind of world or that kind of life, you know, how to unhitch yourself from that.
Yes. Well, so the title of the book is Unhitched, Unlock Your Courage and Clarity to Unstick Your Bad Marriage. And I always like to say the caveat, unsticking a bad marriage does not always mean divorce. I mean, Sarah, you and I were talking even before we started today that sometimes that can mean diving back in and using some of the tools to actually rekindle the intimacy and the connection such that you have a new chapter going forward with this same person. But sometimes, as in my case, it felt like it was in the highest and best interest of everyone to go ahead and unstick it by getting divorced. And we had so much professional intervention in our marriage. So after all of that, and after 12 years of really, I call it, beating our heads bloody against a wall, that was just in everyone's best interest in my mind to go part in peace and be able to actually move forward in a new way.
Yeah. Brilliant. So talk about if somebody is maybe at that point, maybe they are at the point where they've realized, okay, we are getting divorced, or maybe it's so obvious because their partner has just left them and they don't even have a choice in the matter. I mean, it's like how to step forward, I think everybody's dream is to do that in a peaceful way, especially when there are kids involved, because we're connected to both families and there's so much at stake. What helped you to navigate that process?
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. Just about a week or two ago, a master coach that I adore, I follow her on Facebook. She posted something and I was like, yes. She was talking about in her own life how she had been feeling pretty dissatisfied, not only with her career, but with her marriage and all these things. And so she was at the point of meeting with divorce attorneys. Her husband begged her to go to counseling. They did. And when she said, kicking and screaming, she arrived in the counselor's office, the counselor said, you need to work. You think it's your outer or external scenery that's the problem. Do the inner scenery and then come back to me, basically. And in doing her inner work, she was able to transform the life that she was in without having to extricate herself. And she moved forward in this amazing new way. And I thought, yes, and if you have done the inner scenery work and you are still feeling what for me was a whisper, a still small voice that had told me, quite frankly, even from our dating relationship, that this might not be the right relationship for me. And, I've just started getting really honest about that, Sarah, because what I hear people saying a lot is, I didn't walk down the aisle thinking I was going to get divorced. Well, if I'm completely honest, there was a part of me that suspected that given our complications, even during our dating relationship, that it didn't have the legs to last. But we really did our inner scenery work. And at the end of that, the still small voice inside that had been there all along, I finally couldn't ignore anymore. And I realized, I need to change my external scenery as well. Part of there was a touchstone that I returned to over and over again during this time. It's a quote that was paraphrased in one of my favorite books. It's a quote from the Buddha. And it says that when you encounter a body of water, you will know it is the ocean because it tastes of salt. And in the same way, you will know enlightenment and truth because it tastes of freedom, not safety, not comfort, but freedom. And I had so much safety and comfort in my life, but I didn't feel free. Not, true love liberates. Being in a marriage doesn't mean you're not free, and being single doesn't necessarily mean you are free. So I'd say that at the outset. In my relationship, it was not by my own doing, and also my relationship with my husband. I was not living my most free, authentic self. And I could feel that in my body. It felt for me like a constriction in my chest when I envisioned staying, and when I envisioned taking one little small step in a future of unknowns, even though they were freaking scary. I felt more free, and I just had to, what I call in the book, following the freedom. And step by step, I followed the freedom. And that from day to day depended on what that looked like. But I always knew that I was moving toward the right direction when I felt light and expansive in my body, as opposed to, oh, stuck.
Yeah, brilliant. So if you're watching this video right now and you're trying to decide between should I stay or should I go, or even this outside of relationships, you know, this or that, like you've got a decision point of some big kind of decision to make, is just to, what Sunny's saying is just to go inside, kind of get quiet and ask yourself, when you say, okay, I'm going to leave, how does your body respond? You know, does it feel light and expansive, or does it feel constricted and and constricted and not good?
Yeah, and I even heard, this is something that a tool that I also wish that I'd had back in the day. I had a fabulous therapist who walked me through. She'd been a therapist that had seen us for the duration of our marriage as a couple and me separately. So I felt so supported, but there's a tool that I've even heard since then that if your spouse, if you were to come home from work, say, and your spouse had bags packed and said, I'm leaving, do you feel relief? Do you feel any relief in that, basically? And, you know, I really thrashed around in some really immature ways because I didn't feel brave enough to tell my spouse that I knew that I didn't want to be there anymore. So I was hoping that, like, by creating all this chaos and all this, oh my God, I was so awful. I was like such a brat about it that I was hoping he would take the brave action and do it. Yeah. And I thought, you know, that tool, you know, if he'd come home, or if I'd come home and his bags had been packed, I would have been like, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to do the scary thing. So play that one out in your mind and see how it lands. And that's just another piece of information you can use, you know, in evaluating.
And I love what you said around, you were like, unconsciously or consciously, but it sounds like it was pretty unconscious, hoping that somehow he would free you, he would decide to leave so that you could be free to go do what you wanted. And I think I see that all the time, and I saw that in my own path. I mean, I think it's like, I remember being so mad at like the whole world, like, nobody's gonna let me leave, you know, nobody's gonna let me to leave my medical practice. And like, I was mad at everybody for, I guess this is like a little bit of a tangent on that, but I was just wanting to be mad at everybody. But the truth was, it was like, unless I decided to do something about it, I was going to be stuck there. But it's so scary to make these big moves. And especially if, you're financial, like in divorce or in leaving a job like I had, you know, the golden handcuffs, those golden handcuffs can come from marriage, they can come from work, and it can be terrifying to consider, oh my God, like, will I be able to survive on less money, or will I be able to generate my own income, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a point for me, my pain of staying put had exceeded my fear of the unknown. And after years of white knuckle creating, you know, as I describe in the book, what really was, I'd say Instagram perfect. Like, I had really tried to force, you know, education and a successful husband and the, you know, pretty homes and things like that. And that obviously hadn't brought me the fulfillment I was looking for. So at some point I decided it was a benevolent universe. I was going to let go of the reins and I was going to jump into that unknown. And what caught me was so much greater than anything I could have imagined, that that connection to something that really just continued to lovingly pull me forward. Same thing with leaving law, and I'm sure the same in leaving a medical practice. You know, there's a lot of fear of the unknown. But what I found was we are supported by a benevolent, loving universe. And while the fear is great, what lies on the other side can be so much greater.
Yeah. Liz Gilbert, I was just at a convention or got to hear her speaking, and she was talking about throwing your backpack over the wall
Oh,
And the wall being the thing that scares you the most, but the thing that you really want to do, which might be for some throwing your backpack over the wall is that you commit. You're like, I'm going over that wall. So you throw everything you've got, your supplies, your water bottle, whatever's in, you chuck it over. And then you have no choice but to climb the wall. So, that might be like a divorce or leaving your job, or I guess when I took a sabbatical, it was sort of a partial throwing. It was like, I'm committing to exploring at least what it's like to be leaving this job and what would that feel like. But I love that because, and then on the other side of that wall is so magnificent and amazing, and it's challenging and it's beautiful and it's all those things. And I was just going to say, and Sunny has this amazing podcast where she interviews spiritual, it has a spiritual twist for sure, Golden Oversoul Radio, and she interviews tons of authors about amazing topics, and it's so wonderful. And it seems like you've taken, maybe those are skills that you used in the courtroom to, I don't know, but like to interview and kind of find out more about these amazing writers, and I've just enjoyed that. So it's neat to see like how your vocation, you don't necessarily, you take those skills and turn them into something even more fun for yourself to use.
yes, and it has been an exercise. I've heard this from so many spiritual teachers packaged in so many ways, but I think it's finally sinking into my cells and I'm getting it. When you follow the joy, because that show is the highlight of my week, because I get to talk to, Sarah has been a guest twice now. If you go back through the archives, yes. And she'll be back in August too, so stay tuned. But yeah, it's been, when you follow the joy, it keeps your vibration high enough where you continue to attract more of that amazing goodness, so that you know the next step to take. The synchronicities and the breadcrumbs appear for you to follow. And like Sarah, you're talking about being able to translate these skills into other areas. Like, we're considering a move. I put down roots in Seattle 6 years ago. I have an amazing community. The radio show, it's called Sunny in Seattle, so it's kind of specific to the city. But you know what? I'm beginning to feel like following the freedom means going to Northern California. I have no idea. I've spent 6 years developing community, a coaching practice, the radio show, but you know what? Following the freedom feels like going to Northern California now. So we're just going to be kind of like you partially left your practice. We're putting in like applications for little rental homes, and we're going to hold on to the house here. But it's just, I'm now having to really live it to give it again.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know what it's going to look like, and I don't know how it's going to land.
It reminds me of like with Lyle, I was thinking about the beasties and birds when they're getting ready to migrate, they get this thing called Zugenruha, which is a German word for like this. It almost describes this nervousness and this sort of agitation that they get right before it's time for them to move to a different location. And it's almost like these birds get like, I always describe it as like their undies get in a bundle, because they're just kind of like, everything just starts to be kind of uncomfortable. And it's like, it's time to go. And I love that. Like we sense it in our bodies, and we send little ideas start to come. So that's just really exciting. And then it's also scary because, right, it's just stepping one more time into the unknown, not knowing, will I be carried? But when you've lived long enough, you kind of go, it's always worked out somehow. So that's why my friends and I laugh about that sometimes. We're like, how's it going to go? And we're like, it'll go great. Cause it always, something always works out.
And it's called Zugenruha?
I forget what yes. I wrote a little blog about it once. Well, so tell us, Sunny, how can people, like maybe somebody is listening and who is going through divorce and would like to do coaching with you or wants to find your book. Her book is right now still available free to read, people. So tell us how they can get that and how they can find you.
Yes. So I'd say the easiest thing, I won't have print copies until later in the summer. And so I have a website set up called unhitchedbook.com. And if you go to unhitchedbook.com, you can download the book for free. My email address is there. There'll be a little, if you want to connect for a little clarity session to tell me about what you have going on. I always love hearing that, because everyone's in a unique situation. So feel free to go there and grab the free book. And feel free to share it with whoever you want to. I just want it to get in as many hands as possible. And just, it helps answer the question of whether to stay or go, but also I did enough family law to be dangerous back in my practice. So I know enough to and I've also been through the collaborative law divorce process myself. So it'll walk you all the way through a graceful divorce if that's what feels most aligned for you. But it also, the tools that I use to get to a post-divorce, incredibly loving friendship with my ex, they're all in there. Those can help while you're still in a marriage. So it'll meet you wherever you are.
So awesome. Well, it's been a delight, Sunny. Thank you so much for coming on. And I look forward to seeing you in real life in August in Seattle.
Thank you, Sarah, for this opportunity. It's been so much fun.